Hello, my friends, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today, we have just one picture of the puppies in their new little enclosure. This morning, when people got out of bed, we found all four puppies wandering around the living room floor as best they could on their little legs. So we have upgraded them to this plastic enclosed little container, so they have room to move around freely, get their little legs under them, but not so much that I have to worry about them getting too far from their warmth, their heating pad. Grace can jump easily in and out to feed them, but she still gets her own free time away from them. And most importantly, I don't have to worry about them crawling away and freezing to death somewhere in the house because they just aren't warm enough. They're still not quite to the point where they are regulating their own body heat, so they do have to kind of watch that. I have a blanket over the top of the enclosure just to keep any cold breezes from getting in on them. But otherwise, everybody's doing really well. Everybody's eyes are open, as I said yesterday. I didn't weigh them today with the Thanksgiving celebrations going on here. Obviously, I didn't get any pictures either. I am an old lady, and so taking pictures all the time doesn't come naturally to me as it might for some. But I do my best, and I do actually really love taking pictures of the puppies because, let's face it, they're adorable. And while I said my turkey would come out really pretty, it had a little bit of a problem and it didn't come out as pretty as I'd hoped. It wasn't burnt or anything, and it was still very moist and everything. It just cooked faster than I expected it to, and it wasn't quite as golden and all that fun stuff. However, dinner was delicious and I had a great time. I hope those of you who celebrated did as well. Today we're going to talk about acquisitions. Kadokawa has been approached by Sony in an attempt to buy out FromSoft. However, Kadokawa has decided that the only way they will go through with this is if Sony acquires their entire catalog. This includes manga and anime as well as FromSoft, which Sony wants to booster their first party lineup, of course, and everybody's panicking because everybody's well aware of how censorious Sony can be. You'll see here Bloomberg reported that FromSoftware owner Kadokawa Corporations wants Sony to either acquire it entirely, including its vast anime and manga libraries, or not at all. This is reportedly opposed to the PlayStation maker's original plan, which was to carve out purchases of its anime and gaming interests from Kadokawa's varied portfolio. Which, I mean, makes sense to me. It's like, if you're going to try to buy my stuff, don't leave me with what you think is bad. Just take the whole damn thing, and then you can deal with laying off people if you don't like it. And of course, the one thing that I know everybody is terrified of is Sony getting direct control over FromSoft and Hidetaka Miyazaki's work in general. They make a very specific product. It's a very niche product. It's a product for people who love difficult games. And when you have more direct Sony control, that means that there's going to be things that they like to do that they are no longer going to be allowed to do because it doesn't fit what they think the broader audience wants. When a large corporation, a large AAA studio, acquires something that is niche, and we've seen this time after time after time at this point, they always make it worse. They don't let that niche stick to the niche it has, and instead try to broaden it and make it more suitable for modern audiences. And the last thing anybody wants is a modern or even mass appeal audience, which are realistically two different things, but nobody wants that either. I am not a particularly strong FromSoftware player. I've played Sekiro, I've played Bloodborne, and I've played Elden Ring. The one I've gotten the furthest in is Elden Ring. From what I understand, it is also the easiest of the games. I can't even get to the first boss in Bloodborne, let's put it that way. I love the game. I want to experience the lore and everything in that game so bad, but I don't have the time to sit down and get good at it. And I don't want them, despite the fact that I am not good at it, I do not want them adding an easy mode. If I really want help that bad, I will find friends who can link up with me, and then I will play the game that way. But until that day, until I have the time to sit down and devote as much as I would like to the game, it's not going to happen. And I'm okay with that. I don't understand people who want to shoehorn in things into games that don't belong. It's like people who want Baldur's Gate 3 to not be a turn-based game. If you don't like a turn-based game, don't play a turn-based game. That's all I can say there. Now, positive in this could potentially be seeing an anime title you like get a video game. Well, no, I'm sorry. I was about to say seeing a video game you like get a movie. But at this point in time, I don't know that I want to see anything adapted into a movie because, let's face it, their current track record is absolute shit. So I don't want to see that happen at all. This article from Automaton West states that the cost of buying out Kadokawa entirely could discourage Sony from an acquisition deal, says a Japanese finance outlet. Finance analyst Toyo Keizai reports that Sony could face significant obstacles in fully acquiring Kadokawa, a major one being the cost. Keizai goes on to say that it's going to cost them approximately 640 billion yen, which is only about $4.3 million. However, it's still a lot of money for the total buyout because the current shareholders in Kadokawa are the Korean IT giant Kakao at 9% and China's Tencent at 7%. There are actually no investing interests that could stop a total acquisition by Sony. Sony has already said that it would allocate 1.8 trillion yen towards investment in flexible share repurchases, but there has been quite a bit of spending Sony has already been doing, including Sony Music, which has been making $1 billion deals this year, including acquiring the catalogs of artists like Queen and Pink Floyd, which honestly, that's a shit ton of money. You'd have to remember that there's also the acquisitions of other game studios they've currently been going through. And then you have costs like the $400 million towards Firewalk and other flops that they may have helped develop this year. There's quite a bit of money out there that they've lost. So to spend this money to totally acquire Kadokawa, when all they want are the bits and pieces they think would be most profitable, could go a long way to dissuading them from making the acquisition. Now, as this says, that even if they make an offer, the acquisition might not go smoothly, as large-scale merger and acquisition deals can invite rivals. That means a bidding war could start, and at that point, Sony could back out entirely and decide it's not worth their money. This is just one of a number of things that stand in the way between Sony and actually finishing this acquisition. Sony has already backed out of a number of bids that they've put out there. One such example is the Japanese digital manga provider Infocom, which Sony initially planned to bid for. However, Infocom was ultimately acquired by U.S. fund Blackstone. That's not good news either, but, well, it kind of bothers me that Blackstone's buying manga, but whatever. Now, another avenue that Sony could take is, instead of just doing a full-out merger and acquisition, they could try starting to buy shares slowly over time, becoming a majority shareholder. For example, it says alternatively, Sony could acquire 15% of Kadokawa's shares to convert it into an equity method affiliate, or 50% to turn it into a subsidiary. Both options would strengthen the two companies' ties without the need to acquire all shares at once, but it remains to be seen what direction negotiations will take. Meanwhile, Kadokawa's employees have expressed both excitement and disbelief at the prospect of joining Sony and the way this would level up their anime sector. Now, I do find it interesting that they are excited about how that would level up their anime sector, especially when we know that Sony has a tendency to censor. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be a huge anime fan, but I do enjoy watching it from time to time, and I do read a little manga. Junji Ito is generally my particular choice, since I have obviously a taste for horror and Lovecraftian type horror, and he executes absolutely perfectly, and I like the art. I'm not a big fan of some of the more childlike art styles, though I have been known to occasionally indulge in Way of the House Husband. This acquisition would be huge for Sony, considering their current issue, or their stated current issue, Sony has said, is their lack of original IPs. And through the purchase of Kadokawa, they would then have access to a number of original IPs for anime production. And especially as Kadokawa has a strong framework for in-house anime production, the company already produces around 40 anime titles a year and owns studios such as Oshi no Ko's Doga Kobo. And I apologize to anybody who is offended by how poorly I pronounce that. This appears to be a couple of the titles they own. I honestly don't know any of them. Bungo Stray Dogs, The Eminence in Shadow, Oshi no Ko, The Rising of the Shield Hero, and Gamera Rebirth. Combine that with the fact that Sony already owns companies like Aniplex and Crunchyroll, it could set up Sony to be huge in terms of anime, which again, I know most of the anime fans I know are a little afraid of. One of the employees that Toyo Kezai spoke to is quoted as saying, if we were to integrate with Sony, we could do everything from publishing the source material to worldwide distribution of anime. It feels too dynamic to be real. So it sounds like the actual employees may be excited about this, though how long that would last afterwards is always a question. It's not unreasonable to be excited about the fact that you're going to be allowed access to more resources, but what rules will be stuck on them? That would be the ultimate question in the end. To give an idea of how big this acquisition is, a top executive of an anime company not affiliated with Sony or Kadokawa commented, an M&A on the scale of 600 billion would be undoable for us. Sony has us beat. So this acquisition could really screw with a lot of things. It, for one, consolidates more power under Sony specifically, most specifically in the anime world, but it also threatens one of the more beloved studios in current day, a studio who knows its audience and who strives to give their audience what they want, which is generally difficult games with really weird lore and storylines. I mean, I know there are people who don't like FromSoft games, and then there are people who love FromSoft games. Then there are people who have a minor obsession and try to do everything the hardest way they possibly can in a FromSoft game. The range on it is amazing, but the fear of what this kind of merger would change is very real. All that said, let me know what you guys think. Do you think this merger will go through? Does the merger going through concern you? Do any of you think this could be a good thing? I want to say thank you so much for everyone who's subscribing. As of right now, we are only 30 away from that 5K goal. I appreciate everybody who has been hitting that subscribe button. And, you know, even if you don't hit the button, I'm just glad you're here either way. But I do like seeing those nice round numbers, absolutely. For those of you who might be interested, you can become a member of the channel. The link for that is down in the description below. And for those of you who don't like to support through YouTube, you can also visit my Ko-Fi. Support is never necessary, but I appreciate it so very much. It really helps me keep things running here. But most of all, what helps me the very most is just watching the videos. And I appreciate everybody who does that so much. You spend your most value of commodities on me when you do that, and that is your time. So to ask more, I feel bad, but I appreciate it all at the same time. I look forward to hearing from you down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. If you really liked it, you can feel free to share it around, and I will catch you later.